Hey, what's up guys, Tactaholics here, and today we're talking about eye dominance in the context of defensive shooting. Let's take a look. So you spend enough time teaching people, or you spend enough time shooting in a gun range, or maybe you're a new shooter yourself and you have a question about eye dominance, but it's probably one of the more talked about topics that you hear when people are talking about sight picture and sight alignment. They always bring your dominant eye into the equation, into the conversation somehow, and I can tell you that for the context of defensive shooting, it doesn't matter. And the reason that it doesn't matter is largely your defensive shooting encounters, and what you should most probably be training for is typically a distance where you don't need to use your sights. However, if the target size or the target distance dictates that you do need to use your sights, you want to use your dominant eye. And people get confused and they get kind of overly hung up on it. We're going to talk about it with a handgun and with a long gun platform, an AR-15, rifle, shotgun. And certainly it's going to be a little bit different when you start talking about long guns and particularly scoped rifles and things like that. But when you're using a handgun, it doesn't matter. And there's all kinds of tests you see out there where you make this thing and you bring it back towards your eye, it goes to your dominant eye, or you make this and close an eye and see what the object behind the hole in your hands is doing, or you do the thumb test and stuff like that. If you go ahead and look at this in the mirror, you could take your thumb as if it was a gun in your hand, fully extend it out, and you can probably see on the camera that my thumb is right in front of my dominant eye. I am right-handed and right eye dominant. I know people who are cross dominant, they're right-handed and left eye dominant, or vice versa, and you can watch them. They'll extend their thumb out and it appears in front of their left eye. This is what your body already naturally does if you're cross eye dominant. Now typically, most people's difference in the performance level of their eyes or their eye strength is going to be 5%, 3%, 10%, whatever it is. It's a pretty minute difference as far as which eye is better than the other, but most people walking around on the planet are severely right-handed or left-handed. There's a very small percentage of people that are ambidextrously skilled. However, even those people do something primarily with one hand or the other. An ambidextrous person that might be watching this video probably isn't the person that takes a spoonful of cereal with their right hand and the next spoonful with their left hand and so forth. So they have a hand that they favor, while they might be a little bit more neutrally balanced in their skill level with each hand. So when I bring the gun up in front of my line of sight to shoot, I'm naturally lining that gun up in front of my right eye. However, a marginal difference that it might be, it might look like it's right in front of my nose, but if I were to point the gun at the camera, I'll point my hands at the camera, I go ahead and bring the gun up, my thumbs are right in line with my right eye. This is what my body does naturally. If you're right-handed and left eye dominant, you might see some people kind of crossing their head over just a little bit to get their left eye slightly more behind the gun. You might see people bringing the gun slightly off to the left-hand side to get in front of that left eye as a right-handed shooter, and the inverse for left-handed, right eye dominant people, and it's not that big of a deal. What I see far too often is people that are trying to teach a newer shooter or someone that has questions about eye dominance, and it's, let's say that's a right-handed, left eye dominant person. I've seen it countless times where someone will tell them, well, you're left eye dominant, put the gun in your left hand and shoot with your left hand. As I mentioned before, the difference in your eye strength might be 10% difference as far as performance level, but the difference in your hand dexterity might be significant. You might be 70% more right-handed than you are left-handed, so why would you put yourself behind the 8-ball and start carrying a gun on your left-hand side or putting the gun in your left hand just so that you can work harder to control the firearm when your eye is only marginally stronger and marginally preferred over the opposite eye? It doesn't make any sense. And with a handgun, as far as eye dominance, it doesn't matter which hand is dominant and which eye is dominant. Your body will naturally bring that gun up in front of the eye that it wants to be in front of. I trust my life to Pitbull Tactical because it stands up to the demands that I need as a concealed carry citizen, as a firearms instructor, and as a gun and gear reviewer. The adjustment, the versatility, it's all there. I mean, the capabilities that you can do with one holster and the variety of configurations you can get out of just one simple holster, one rig, it's money well spent. You're not going to find it anywhere else. Now let's go ahead and talk about long guns. Whether that's a bead sight on a shotgun or a red dot such as I have on this AR-15 pistol here, or certainly a magnified optic like you'd find on a precision rifle, long guns are where it becomes appropriate to switch to your non-dominant hand to match with your non-dominant eye. So me as a right-handed shooter and a right eye dominant person, I would typically hold the gun in a pretty traditional configuration such as this. However, if I was right-handed and left eye dominant, my eye won't be able to see, my dominant eye won't be able to see through this red dot, or if it was a scoped rifle, I wouldn't be able to see through that scope. So what we want to do at that point is go ahead and transition to our support hand. So now my left hand would become the primary operating hand for the firearm, which would line up my left eye behind that optic so that I can see what I'm doing. This becomes a lot less of an issue because we have a wider tolerance for deviation and more control over a long gun or an AR-15 pistol, because we have 4 points of contact on the gun, being your shoulder, both of your hands, and your cheek down on the stock of the gun. So it becomes a lot easier to control the firearm versus trying to shoot a handgun where you only have 2 points of contact on the firearm. And if you're primarily controlling that handgun with your left hand or with your support hand, it becomes much more challenging. So if you are cross-eye dominant and shooting a long gun, go ahead and transition that firearm to your support hand or your non-dominant hand so that your dominant eye can be appropriately lined up behind whatever type of optic or iron sights that you're shooting through. And remember that with a handgun, shoot with your strong hand, and your brain will instinctively place that firearm in those sights right in front of the dominant eye where it needs to be. Even if that involves canting of your head a little bit or bringing your arm slightly over, it's probably something that people do largely without thinking about it until it becomes a topic of discussion, and then it kind of starts to mentally trip people up and they start overthinking it and starting to question what they're doing, and that's why they put the gun in their support hand with a pistol, and that's not what we want to do. So let the body behave naturally with the handgun in your hand, and with the long gun or an AR-15 pistol, go ahead and make sure that your dominant eye is lined up behind the optic and do what you need to do from there. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave a comment below if this helped you out, or if you have any additional thoughts or conflicting thoughts even with our philosophies on eye dominance for the context of defensive shooting. And we'll see you next time. We never quit. I'm a firm believer that most handguns' accuracy, or the accuracy of most handguns, the capabilities, lies in the shooter and the trigger finger. Let's go ahead and load it up, push it out a little ways. We're going to see how this works.
We're going to do recoil management on ARs today. We're going to talk about the function, the physics behind the weapon system, as well as the anatomy of your body and how we can actually work that into the form and the function of the weapon system.
Get my bread when I cash my check. I'm Pyrex, you know me yet, better get ready, cause God has blessed me. I bleed, nothing but trucker, I'm real as could be. Gonna continue to keep asking me, am I your rapper?